Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel once before. The last time I reviewed one of their beers though was a very long time ago in about 2017, and I really enjoyed that one, so I'm not sure how it's taken me so long to review another one of their beers, because this brewery does have a very good reputation and it is one that I would like to try more from actually. But for this review then we are going to head down to Somerset in the southwest of England, to a little place called Shepton, Mallet to be specific, and we're going to have a look at my second beer from the Wild Beer Company. This particular beer is called the Lemoneepa IPA. It comes in at 6% ABV, and I guess we can simply describe this one as a sour IPA. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. The last beer that I had from these guys was the Millionaire Stout, which was really very nice actually. I do remember that beer, and yeah, I think that was one that came through Systembolaget in Sweden actually, through one of the tillfälligt small partier kind of things over there. So yeah, this is a brewery that I don't come across all that often, but I think the next time I'm home here in Scotland I will make an effort to get a couple of beers from them and review those for you here on the channel, because it's a brewery that I would like to explore a little bit more actually, because like I say, they do have a very good reputation. But yeah, definitely looking forward to trying this one for you. I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it, and it's nice to have these guys on the channel once again. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from the Wild Beer Company before, and hopefully, like I say, we can add some more to that in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment, because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland, and hopefully we can continue to add to it regularly when we get back to Sweden. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about the Wild Beer Company then. So the Wild Beer Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in a little place called Shepton Mallet in Somerset in the southwest of England, and the company was founded by Andrew Cooper and Brett Ellis back in 2013. So Andrew had spent a number of years running pubs and then later worked at the Bristol Beer Factory, while Brett had worked as a chef in California and homebrewed as a hobby. So they later decided that they were going to start up their own brewery when they noticed that, you know, like Belgian wild beers, sours and things like this hadn't really been brewed in England all that commonly before, and you know, fair to say it's gone quite well for them. But in 2017, having grown their company quite a little bit, they successfully crowdfunded to build a new brewery which is based on the Bath and West Showground. But the new brewery has a tap room, a restaurant, conference rooms, and also a space outside that they can use to grow produce for beers and for the kitchen, which is pretty cool. But they also have the Wapping Wharf Bar in Bristol as well, which is kind of, I guess, an unofficial tap room, I guess you could say. But I do want to make sure I check that out when I get down to Bristol later in the year. But these days they've got a library of about 600 different barrels that they use for doing all the different sour beers. And as of January 2021, when I'm producing this review for you, these guys have produced in the region of 150 different kinds of beer. So yeah, they are a fairly prolific brewery, one of the first breweries in England to focus on sour beers. I think pretty much, you know, I think it's about 90% or something of the beers that these guys have produced are sour beers. The one that I mentioned from them earlier though, the Millionaire Stout that I reviewed, that one is just a regular beer. So this is actually the first kind of sour beer that I'm trying from Wild Beer Company, incidentally, which is a bit strange to be honest with you, because that is what this brewery is really well known for. So I need to make an effort and have a go at some of their other things on the channel over the next little while, so we will see about making that happen, definitely. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about the Wild Beer Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, short and sweet history section in this video then. There wasn't too much available on these guys. this that I didn't have already. But yeah, let's have a little look at this one then. So to tell you a little bit about the data on this beer, this one is a 6% sour IPA. It's brewed with a mixed culture of Philly sour yeast and also a WBC house ale yeast, and it's got a malt base of barley malt, oats and also rice, which I think should be quite interesting. Rice can have a really interesting effect when you put it in beer, but it's hopped with Victoria's Secret from Australia and then Simcoe and Cascade from America. So Victoria's Secret, as we know, is the little kind of brother or sister, if you like, of Galaxy. Lots of lovely kind of passion fruity and tropical fruit notes in there. Simcoe's a very is straight up passion fruit as well. And then Cascade, as we know, is the kind of classic, you know, the kind of classic American Yakima Valley hop, about 8% alpha acid, but lovely kind of figgy and slightly grapefruity notes I always find you get from Cascade. It's a very distinctive hop actually. But yeah, pardon me, 6%. IPA. This one, load of lemons in it as well, as the name suggests. They're saying on here on the side, a lemonade IPA packed full of real lemons and hops that enhance the wonderful citrus character, fermented with 2 yeasts to bring complex fermentation flavours and a touch of acidity. It's pale and bitter, refreshing, light and zesty. So yeah, I think this should be quite interesting. But yeah, there you can see the artwork on the can. This kind of stag, if you like, the sort of split skull stag, I would describe it as. That is the symbol of the Wild Beer Company. But yeah, Lemoneepa IPA, 6% ABV. I think this beer should be quite interesting. So this is a 440ml can, and I'm trying to remember, I think I got this one from the House of Trembling Madness in my second order. So yeah, awesome beer shop down in York if you can get there physically, and otherwise they have a great web shop actually. So yeah, I think that is, you know, one of the best value web shops in England. So I need to make sure the next time I come home to Scotland I do another order from House of Trembling Madness and get a couple of the sour bottles actually. But yeah, this one I think should be very, very nice. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. 440ml can, as I said, and I think this one cost me about £5 or something again, so about €6, maybe $6.50 American, and for those of you in Sweden that translates to roughly about, you know, 60 Swedish kroners or something like that. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Let's have a little look at this. I think this should be quite interesting. It's crystal clear actually. Let's just check and see if there's any sediment in here. No, there doesn't appear to be. Did not expect a crystal clear beer out of this one. And yeah, there is absolutely no sediment in the bottom of that can. Definitely not. Yeah, nothing. So yeah, that's quite interesting. But yeah, looks pretty good. So yeah, as you can see, when we poured the beer, it came out with about a quarter finger of a quite frothy sort of creamy coloured head, but that's faded away to be pretty much nothing, to be honest with you. But yeah, as you can see, this beer has poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. It just looks like a Pilsner or a lager beer or something like that, obviously though a little bit less carbonated. So yeah, that's kind of quite interesting, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it to be crystal clear. I thought this was going to be a big sort of kind of hazy beer, to be honest with you. It looks a little bit more like a kind of kettle sour or something like that. But yeah, that's really, really interesting. So yeah, pale golden straw colour. You can see there's 1 or 2 bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, well, what's left of the head, there's just a few little kind of tufts of wispy kind of cream there. But I mean, overall, it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yeah, interesting one. This is just not what I expected. Definitely looks like apple juice or a lager or something like that. But yeah, definitely confused a bit by the appearance of this one, but let's have a look at the aroma and just see how we get on. Really, really curious about this beer. Yeah, so straight away with this one, I'm going to say that underneath this you can definitely smell the rice in this beer. As I mentioned earlier, rice can have a really interesting effect in beers. I love Japanese rice lagers. I've had one of those recently from Mikkeller. And you can smell, you know, the Japanese rice lager that I had from Mikkeller a few months back, this beer does remind me of that quite a little bit, to be honest with you. You can smell that big oily ricey character in the malt base of this one. And, you know, I've had a couple of IPAs where they just put a little bit of rice in them, and I think it just gives you a lovely kind of oily malt base. Quite a few of the Japanese breweries that I've reviewed for you on the channel before do this kind of thing, and I think it works, you know, very, very well. But yeah, there's some really, really interesting and quirky things going on with with this beer in the malt base. I mean, for me, there's not too much going on in the aroma in this beer. You can smell that sort of oily rice. There's a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. I would say that about it. There's a little bit of that going on in here. You can smell a little bit of the oats, but yeah, it's just interesting. I think this beer, when it's got oats in it, I'm pretty sure that this has been filtered, I think, as well. This beer has been filtered, I'm pretty sure. There is a little bit of natural haze to it, but I've got a feeling that beer has been filtered, to be honest with you, because I don't think if you use oats, you're going to get a beer naturally this clear, to be honest with you. I think you can't get a beer that's naturally this clear, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think I'm pretty sure this has been filtered. Which I'm surprised about. I would have thought that, Wild Beer Company would have just kind of left it naturally, if you like. So that's an interesting point, but again, if you know better, and someone from the brewery's watching and it hasn't been, correct me, absolutely. But yeah, the aroma, that is interesting. You can smell a bit of the oatiness in the beer, like I say, but mainly it's that kind of oily, ricey sort of thing that's forming the backbone there. A little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, like I say, but otherwise not too much to report on the malty side of things. Yeah, on the hoppy side of the beer, again, it's there's not too much to report. You get a little tiny bit of earthiness out of it. There's a good little bit of floral aromaticity in there as well. A little bit of floral aromaticity, but for me, the green side of the beer really leans towards that kind of grassy hop, actually. But this beer is really not overly assuming. There's not too much. There's really not a lot going on in terms of the malty, or the green side of the hops either. It's actually quite an unassuming beer, this one, to be honest with you. But yeah, on the... so yeah, a little bit of grassiness, a little bit of floral character, but otherwise not a lot going on, I have to say. But yeah, in terms of the... in terms of the fruity side of things, it is kind of what you would expect. It's got a big kind of zesty lemony quality to it, but again, I would not say it's overly sharp and overly citric in the nose. It's quite juicy, actually. It really comes across as just a little bit of a kind of juicy lemony note, to be honest with you. And I'm surprised at the choice of hops in this one. I mean, Centennial would have been the obvious candidate to put in here, and a bit of lemon drop maybe, those would be the two that you'd think, if you want to go for a really all-out lemon IPA, you'd think that's kind of what they'd go for. But I mean, underneath this, you can pick up a little bit of a kind of slightly tropical thing, there is a very slight passion fruit to it, but for me there's a good little bit of pear. There's quite a bit of a peary ester to this one. And that would be it, to be honest with you. There is not a lot to say about the aroma for this one. It's definitely not one of the beers that has so much depth to it in terms of the aroma, but yeah, I mean, sometimes, as we say, simplicity can be better. Sometimes simplicity can be all you need, but yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before we get stuck into it. But yeah, I'm just really curious about this, because this is not what I expected at all. A lot of rice, good little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing, some oats in there, quite an unassuming green component to the beer, a little bit grassy, a little bit floral, and then a bit of juicy lemon, a little bit of tropical fruit underneath, and quite a bit of pear. That sums up the aroma in this one fairly concisely, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm just really curious about this. Let's have a taste of it. This one is the Lemoneepa 6% sour IPA with a bit of rice and stuff in it, mixed fermentation, from the Wild Beer Company in Shepton, Mallet in Somerset in the southwest of England. Let's have a go at this beer and see how we get on. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, again, it's a fairly just straight shooting beer, this. Yeah, I mean, how do we describe this one? I mean, it's kind of what you would expect from the aroma. It's one of these beers that is just exactly kind of what you would expect from it on the aroma. And I quite like it. I do have to say, I quite like this one. Is this the craziest beer that you're going to find from Wild Beer Company, or the most kind of full-flavoured one? I very much doubt that. I mean, the Millionaire was a really impressive and really nicely done beer. This one, I think, is a little bit more sort of easy going. I think this is one that's maybe designed to just be a little bit kind of sessionable, dare I say it. Yeah, and well, sour beers for me, I would never really session sour beers. Sour beers for me, of any description, I like tasting those. There's ones that I would drink a little bit of and just have a taster of. But this one strikes me, I mean, especially when it's in a can as well, you would think, yeah, this is one that's designed to be a little bit more kind of sessionable and drinkable. So yeah, it's got a sort of, I mean, this beer really has a kind of golden ale type quality about it, I would say. It comes across like that, to be quite honest with you. It's more like a kind of golden ale than an IPA in a lot of ways. So yeah, this is really interesting for sure. Yeah, the flavour of this beer, I think, it's very straight shooting. I mean, I'm just thinking, where do we start with this? But yeah, what I'm going to say about this beer is that it's interesting how the malt base finds its balance. I mean, you can feel there is a little bit of a kind of pale barley maltish quality that's forming the backbone of the beer, but then the rice, you know, in that middle third of your palate, you've got that big kind of oily character from the rice, which I think is really interesting. That again is part of the backbone of this beer. So yeah, the rice and just a little bit of the barley malt are the main kind of components in this one. Absolutely. Yeah, this is just a really very, very quirky beer for me. And I have to say, it does grow on me the more that I drink it. But yeah, like I say, it is very much just like a kind of ricey golden ale, this one. So yeah, as I say, middle of your palate is just blanketed with that kind of nice oily rice sort of thing. I love Japanese sake. You know, I've got family connections to Japan and things like this. But I love, you know, the Japanese sake and the kind of sweet ricey sort of thing. You don't get so much of a sweetness out of the rice in this beer, but rice always gives you a lovely, just oily character, and that, as I say, that forms the backbone in that middle third of your palate. You can feel a few of the kind of grainy things from the barley malt coming out a little bit later on. But yeah, in the very middle of your palate there, you get a wee bit of booziness out of the beer, and then you've also got a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. Other than that, there's not a lot going on in the malty side of the beer. I mean, if you go towards the back third of your tongue, the sort of rice, sort of oily ricey sort of thing, just kind of pushes its way back there. I think the oats, I mean, there's a sort of line down the middle of your palate here, and you can feel just a little bit of the oaty smoothness kind of sitting in on top of the rice actually as well. So the rice, as I say, the rice just kind of holds everything else on top of it, so it feels like you've got this really oily layer of ricey flavour forming the backbone of the beer. Then you've got a little bit of barley malt kind of in the very centre of your tongue on top of the, you know, and as I say, you've got a line kind of right down the middle of your palate where there's a nice kind of oaty smoothness in there, and then in the very, very centre of your tongue there's a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of it. So yeah, it's just a very, very quirky beer in a lot of ways, and it's, as I say, very straight shooting, and I think it's a little bit of an acquired taste, but I'm a huge fan. I do love you know, rice lagers and things like this. I've always really liked them, and this beer just reminds me of that. It's like a rice golden ale, definitely. It's not quite crisp enough to be a lager beer, if that makes sense. It's definitely got a bit more of that kind of golden ale type quality to it for sure. Although I would say, the other thing I would say about this is that it is described as an IPA, but it's, I would, if I was blind tasting this, I would struggle to kind of recognise it as that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't, it's not the most hoppy of beers that you're going to come across, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think I would struggle, if I was blind tasting this, I would struggle to identify this as an IPA. I don't know if I'd be able to tell you exactly what this beer was, but I would think, maybe I would think it was a kind of, you know, so I would like to think I would tell you that it was some kind of golden ale. I don't know if I would identify the rice, because the rice is quite an unusual thing to put in beers. There's not many beers that they'll put rice in them. So yeah, I'm not sure if I would recognise that straight away with this one. But this is why I like reviewing beers from different breweries all the time, because you're always going to get things like this that teaches you a little bit about what's going on. But yeah, the malty side of this beer is really interesting actually. I think it's really very quirky, but yeah, quite just an oily sort of golden ale beer, to be honest with you. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, yeah, there's a little touch of earthiness there, but as you move further forward from that, you can feel that there's a big floral aromaticity starts to kind of push its way out of the beer. It does develop a wee touch of spiciness the further the further forward you go on the kind of front sides of the tongue. And I mean, you've got Simcoe and you've got Victoria's Secret in here. Both of those are fairly high alpha acid hops. You know, I think Victoria's Secret's about 11%. I think Simcoe can usually be between 12 and 13. So yeah, you're going to get a little bit of that in here. But then as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and sort of grassy, if that makes sense. You do get a little bit of that lighter grassy kind of thing. So the green component in this beer, I think, goes together very, very nicely, I have to say. So yeah, again, that just gives the beer a little bit of a kind of freshness almost, and a wee bit of zestiness as well. So yeah, the yeah, this I think this is really, really very nice actually. I love how I do like how this one goes together. It's very, as I say, it's just very straight shooting. I think you get a little bit more. You do get the floral aromaticity kind of intensifies on the front corners of your palate as you go into the aftertaste, but then the grassiness, you know, the grassiness in this one, I think, you know, the grassiness just kind of gives you a little bit of zest on the front of the palate as well, which is really interesting. But yeah, as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And for me, this one is really quite interesting in that sense as well. So yeah, if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, on that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, you can feel there's a wee bit of a kind of intensive note from the rice. You can feel just a little bit of a boozy, ricey quality in there. But then, yeah, as you move further forward into that front third of your palate, you get a good little bit of a kind of ricey, you know, you do get a little bit of a kind of oily, ricey kind of quality in there as well. But then you get the kind of citrusy note on top of that. But as you move further forward, you get quite an oily, you really do get an oily kind of passion fruity note. That'll be both the Simcoe and the Victoria's Secret that are contributing to that, absolutely. And you know, Simcoe's an interesting hop because if you use it in a kind of West Coasty IPA and stuff like that, it comes across as a little bit more oily, whereas if you use it in a New England IPA, it's one of the softest kind of passion fruity notes you'll get. So yeah, it's definitely behaving, Simcoe's behaving more like a kind of oily hop in this, and the Victoria's Secret is doing the same. So the fruity side of this beer is very, very oily, but as you move further forward, you will feel that the beer develops a little bit of an apricot-y note, and then as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, it really has quite a bit of an oily, lemony, zesty quality to it. The other thing to remember about this beer is that it does have lemons as adjuncts. And whenever you add a fruit in as an adjunct to the beer, it always kind of suppresses a little bit of the kind of green component of the hops and takes the bitterness down a little bit. But yeah, you can feel the lemons around that kind of front edge of your tongue, and they just spread a little bit further back on the around the kind of sides of your palate there. But they're not too prominent. That's the thing about this. They're just not too prominent in there. This is a beer it's very sort of mild-mannered, to be honest with you. That's what I would want to say about this. I mean, they describe it as a sort of lemonade. It does say on the website that it's meant to be like a lemonade IPA, and it says that here, a lemonade IPA packed full of real lemons and hops. And I had a lemonade sour from Muley's Brewery in back in Sweden, and that one I think was really, really interesting as well. This one's very different in a sense that it's you know, this one's very different in a sense that it's how would you say, this is definitely more kind of oily and things like that. That one that I had from Muley's was very, very crisp. So that's what this beer really reminds me of, actually, is that, I forget the name of that now. I think it was actually maybe just called Lemonade or something, from Muley's Brewery in Örebro. Is it Örebro or is it Eskilstuna? I always mix up those two towns in Sweden. But yeah, it really reminds me of a beer that I had from Muley's recently. But yeah, it's like a big oily, ricey, golden ale, this one. So yeah, I'm really not sure what to make of this beer. Every so often you'll get beers like this that just kind of throw you off and you're like, what do you think about this? But yeah, I like it. I do like this one. It kind of grows on you the more that you drink of it. But yeah, unless you like, you know, lemonade, it does have that sort of lemonade vibe about it. Like if they turned a kind of golden ale into lemonade, then this is what you would have. Or if they crossbred them, this is what you would have. So yeah, this is really a really kind of quite quirky beer, I have to say, in that sense. So yeah, thumbs up to Wild Beer Company for producing something quite interesting here. But like I say, I think this one's obviously designed to be a little bit kind of sessionable, to be honest with you. But I think they will have more kind of striking beers. Absolutely, I think it's fair to say that for sure. But yeah, this one has certainly got me thinking. I feel that this isn't one of my stronger reviews, to be honest with you, just because of how unusual this beer is. And it's quite, as I say, it's quite a straight shooting beer. I feel as if I'm kind of missing something with it, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's kind of round off the review with the mouthfeel then. So for me, this is quite, so it's kind of top end of full bodied. Top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. You know, the carbonation is very smooth in this beer. It's a really oily mouthfeel for me. The malty side of the beer is pretty much kind of non-existent. It's all about the kind of yeast. It's all about the kind of rice and a bit of the yeast in there as well, to be quite honest with you. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I'd want to say that this beer maybe has, like, I think it does have about 20 or so IBUs. I think there's a little bit of IBU in this one, but really it's the kind of lemony zest that kind of takes over, and the floral aromaticity, those linger there on the kind of, you know, on the front part of the palate and on the sides as you go further into the aftertaste. So yeah, it's a very, very quirky beer, this one, but I have to say, I've enjoyed this because it has tested my palate a little bit, and after 2,600 reviews, you want beer that's going to test your palate. So well done to Wild Beer for producing something a little bit different here. But I think from a next review from Wild Beer, I need to just have a look and see what sours they've got and pick out a few. I think that probably what I'll do, I think this is one of the breweries that I really would like to do a kind of direct from brewery order and just get a couple of things from them and try them, because this is only my second beer from them, so you know, maybe a six-pack, a mixed six-pack or something like that from these guys could be very, very interesting. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. Definitely been nice to return to these guys after about 3.5 or so. Yeah, probably about 3.5 years since I last reviewed something from these guys, so fingers crossed we can take a look at one of their beers at some point in the fairly near future, and I will see about doing a direct from brewery order from these guys, absolutely. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one then. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Wild Beer Company, and we will definitely return to these guys at some point very, very soon. This one was the Lemoneepa, a sour IPA, lemonade IPA as they're calling it, from the Wild Beer Company in Shepton, Mallet in Somerset in the southwest of England. Just a really quirky beer this, and I'm glad I was able to review it for you. So until the next time, slange it, skull, cheers, and I'll catch you guys in the next review.